Hello and welcome to It's All About You, the best show about you on the internet. I am B. Dave Walters, life, relationship, and spiritual coach. This is episode 40. 40. Can you believe it's episode 40? We've spent like 13 hours together now, so we should know each other pretty well. Episode 40, Family. And I'm actually dedicating this one to someone, to the DaCosta family over in England. I'm not going to say London. They live near London, but I will pronounce the town wrong, and it's been my experience that my British friends hate it when you say they're from London and they're not. So, they're from the UK. So this is for Lauren, Dana, Leah, and Mom Lorna, and Dad Denzel. You guys are fantastic. One of the best families I know. Everybody should have the opportunity to grow up in such a loving, stable environment. You're all fantastic. So, like always, I want to start off with a quote. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. This is by Lao Tzu, founder of Taoism. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. This is by Lao Tzu. I wrote an article quite some time ago about parenting and what it means to be a good parent. And a big part of being a good parent is actually being a good child to your own parents. But lately, you may not know this, the reason why I do a lot of these videos is I find out what people are asking me a lot of at the time, because I tend to get questions in bunches, like 4 or 5 people ask me the same thing, and then I'll do a video on that. And so recently, dealing with children, especially dealing with teenagers, has come up quite a bit. So I just kind of want to talk about all the aspects of family, from being a parent to being a child to having kids, being married, all of it in this, relationship that we have together. So, we've talked quite a bit about change and about how you see yourself and your self-image, and the idea that a lot of people kind of have adopted this idea that I'm not good enough at some point in their lives. And big chunks of who you are is dictated by your family and by your upbringing. For the most part, there's 3 major factors at work in who you are today. And that's how you were born, your baseline nature, if you want to say your astrological sign, or, just your baseline temperament, because anybody who's been around a baby knows you're born with a personality. The second thing is the decisions you've made, your experiences in your life and what you made those experiences mean, like we talked about in the meaning episode, and your upbringing, and what you were taught, and how you were raised, and what you were led to believe. You probably inherited your religious beliefs from your family. You clearly probably inherited your language from your family, and just your general overview and worldview and outlook you probably inherited from your parents in ways that you may not be aware of. Let's say even if your father was, I don't know, a diehard conservative, and in response you rebelled against that and became a diehard liberal, even though you're the exact opposite of him, his choices still dictated your choices. Does that make sense? And I really cannot overestimate the value of, if there's something about you that you don't understand, look to your parents, look to your relationship with your parents. If there's something that, especially in your romantic relationships, if there's something that you cannot do, if you can't commit, or if you have to have a certain type of guy, or if you keep picking bad guys or bad girls, look at your relationship with your father, look at your relationship with your mother, look at the relationship of them together, and quite often you will see the ghost of what it is that you're doing now. And I don't mean that just in a Freudian way, like everybody kind of wants to find a woman like their mom. Sort of. But you get yourself into similar situations as you saw them grow up in. Like I talk about many times before, if you grew up in a household where your parents yelled and were abusive to each other, or yelled and were abusive to you, then your young mind didn't say, wow, well, they're loud and abusive, they must not love each other, and they must not love me. No, what your mind does says, well, my parents have to love me, they're my parents. So that's what love looks like. Love is twisted and angry and jealous and vengeful and hurtful, and then that is what you form your idea of love to be. And that's what you live into, and that's what you duplicate in your relationships, and God forbid, that's what you do with your own children. So, whether or not you have children, I can tell you the first step in being a good parent is to be a good child to your parents, right? Now here's the thing, that when I did the Landmark Forum, I've mentioned this before, the Landmark Forum's fantastic, it'll change your life. It's a little weird, especially on the first day. Believe me, nobody knows that better than I do. But it's a fantastic process. I really cannot recommend it highly enough. I did their first 3 classes, the curriculum for living, they call it. Changed my life. Will change yours if you let it. But at any rate, one of the biggest things they did from that is they took 2 kids from the audience. They took a guy who was around 25 and a girl who was around 21, which is the age many of our parents were when we were born. And they let them stand up on the stage and they said, look at these 2 people. Do they look like they have all the answers? And of course the answer is no. Here's the thing. When your parents were born, they probably were about your age right now, or maybe even younger than you are. Of course, I'm not sure how old you are, and I got lots of different ages that watch these shows. But think about it. Think about how old your mom and dad were relative to how old you are right now. And then imagine how you would feel if you had a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or 5-year-old or 2 or 3 kids by now. How would you look at the world? What would you be doing right now, right? Because they're still at the mercy of everything they were taught and what they were raised to believe and how they were indoctrinated. This is especially true of a lot of my friends who are from other countries and other cultures. Especially because the world is collapsing now. The world's a village, and it's very easy to see how everybody lives everywhere. Or if you immigrated to another country, maybe you don't live in the country that your parents were raised in. But we tend to bring our culture and heritage with us, which is good most of the time, except when we put it on our parents to be an unrealistic expectation of things. We put it on our children, to be an unrealistic expectation of things. If you want your children to live 100% the way you lived in the old country, then maybe you shouldn't have left the old country. It's true. Now, I don't mean forget where you come from. In fact, I have a lot of friends that are from other countries, and when they move here to the United States, they don't teach their children the language of where they come from. And I actually think that's a mistake. I think you definitely should teach your children the language. Let them read the literature. Tell them your stories. Tell them their history. Let them be proud of where they come from, but realize they're in a new place now. They're in a new time now. And sometimes that requires you to make new decisions moving forward together, okay? So in dealing with your parents and in dealing with your children, realize that you, actually everybody, is going to be a link in a chain between 2 very different worlds. My grandparents, well, actually I only have one left, but I love her very much, Medea. If any of my family is watching right now, represent for Medea. Woo. Medea is in her 70s. Actually, I think she's about to turn 80. Sorry, I should know this, but apparently I'm mistaken because I'm trying to keep track of a lot of things right now. But I know I love Medea. At any rate, Lexi, my daughter, is 2. Okay? Their lives and their experiences and their expectations of what life is like are so vastly different that it's difficult to even conceive of, you know, or even my parents. You know, what my parents experienced growing up, you know, obviously I'm black. And they grew up in a time before the civil rights struggle. They know what it's like to not be able to walk in the front door of a restaurant. They know what it's like to have hoses turned on you and dogs set on you in a way that I do not know. And I thank God for it, and I thank them for their sacrifices, and I thank everybody that worked on both sides, white, black, purple, Mexican, Latino, Jewish, everybody that worked together to fix that situation. Thank you from me and everybody like me. But the fact is, they grew up in a situation that I cannot conceive of. If your parents grew up in a time of war or strife or difficulty, remember, that programmed them in a way that you don't understand. And they're still living out of that sometimes, even when they don't mean to. They're living out of their own history and they're applying that to you. So you have to look and see what out of your own history are you applying to your children? And are you applying it to them in a good way or in a bad way? Are you teaching them to be strong and self-determinate and confident and fearless and passionate and driven, which is great? Or are you teaching them fear and paranoia? Are you teaching them out of the worst aspects of your history? Are you teaching them to expect the absolute worst that people can offer based on what's happened to you? Now, again, I have to split this for my brothers and sisters on YouTube. Watch part 2. Everybody else, stay with me. Hang on.